Hi guys, I'm here with Miyara Rose. She's I don't know, she's an astrologer, intuitive, like a quantum QHHT practitioner, like person. Like she's an amazing, psychic, wonderful woman that you need to all get in touch with. She's been on my show before. She's here again. And we're going to talk about some really interesting, cool stuff today. So hi, Miyara.
Hi, Nikki. It's really good to be here. So I thought today would be a great time to talk about the subject of the Earth grid, the electromagnetic field, power points, portals, stargates, all things Earth that go even deeper into inner space or outer space. I don't know. So today let's talk about it and let's riff a little.
Okay, that's awesome because like those are like my favorite subjects, and I have gone to a lot of. Okay, so first of all, like places that I've gone that they've told me are portals. Like I've gone to places like, like Mount Shasta or like Sedona or like Mauna Kea or something in Hawaii, or I've been to like the Great Pyramids and Stonehenge and these kinds of places, right? But then there's other places that I have found to be just as powerful, or if not more so, that I stumbled on, because sometimes I've seen a lot of this stuff about like this is the chakra system, these are the chakra points of the earth, and I think that could be somebody else's truth, and that's cool, but I don't know that that's like universal chakra points for every single. I'm just saying, like, I think there's more points than 7 on the planet. Okay, portals are really interesting, but I also have wondered if I don't open them sometimes. So that's
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, let me just like go over the chakra point system idea that it's related to the earth, because I think I can like expound on this idea that can make it feel more resonant. So there are way more chakra systems in our bodies than 7. And I don't think that people teach that. We're limited to the idea of 7 just because that's what's taught in mainstream metaphysics. But there are at least 12 that are just on this dimensional plane, that can be sensed on the earth plane. And then there's higher dimensions, chakra system and points that go beyond that. But really, when we're connected to the different points on our body, we can go out into the etheric plane as well with our chakra points. So with the earth, there are different dimensional portal points, like different aspects on the planet are connected to different dimensions in the timelines of the planet. And when we go to a certain place, we tend to access that dimensional point. For instance, like there's the first dimension. Our first dimensional access point is actually in Phoenix, Arizona. So Phoenix, Arizona connects to a parallel Earth. So when we go there, we can actually experience this kind of parallel reality, parallel Earth. It's very different than, say, going to Machu Picchu, which accesses like a fifth dimensional plane, which is related to the heart chakra. The fifth dimensional point of a timeline is connected to the actual 4th chakra, which is our heart chakra. So we can access that chakra through Machu Picchu. But say like Iran, Iraq is actually like connected to maybe a 10th kind of dimensional gate in another timeline. If you think about like the 10 verse 12 mathematical so when we think about the 12 mathematical construct, it's actually the original divine human template. So that's why we get into the 12 dimensions. But to keep us in a reverse kind of technology and a mind control, we've been really adapted to the 10 system, which is the ones and zeros, which is connected to the software programming. So it is a bit more in touch with the mind control system, the 10 grid mathematical system. So if that makes sense. So that's actually connected to that. The 10 grid system there is actually in reverse. So it's things like that.
Okay,
And
but
I want to
so
just
how do you know about, like, is this from your own intuition or is this from research? Like, how do you
This
know?
is from years of research. So years of research of like reading different theories and then constructing them together. Now, my main point of contact that I do get a lot of this grid work information from, or like the planetary grid lines and the ley lines, is from Lisa Renee from Energetic Synthesis, because she's been studying this. She's been active planetary grid worker for, I don't know, since 2004 or something. So like she's been putting out a lot of material, tracking a lot of this information. And so she has quite a bit like of resources that I do access with this. And she's been tracking it, and she was right from like very long time. She would actually get into what would happen in the future. And if you read some of her older write-ups, you could see it kind of unfolding now. Like in 2008, she was talking about how Mars was going to become more apparent in the consciousness, and we were going to understand Mars more, and where, our place in the Martian timeline. And it's kind of all coming out now, with people coming out with, stories of being involved with the
Your
Super
space
Soldier
program.
program in Montauk and things like that. And if you think about Montauk, New York, so that's another reverse, dark portal there, because Montauk, New York is where they do train a lot of super soldiers, and there's a connection there to Mars, right? So just things like that, it's interesting. But like the chakra system, yeah, it's not the full story. I mean, it's like a tiny piece of like the planetary experience, with gridline. But
And for me personally, like, not knowing where all the grids aren't, I have like what I do as just like an individual is, I've noticed when I'm called to go somewhere, I will get like like 2 to 3 hits about that same place. Will just be like bombarded to me like in 1 week. Like and I'll know that I have to go there. Like for instance, this year I went to Palenque in Mexico, and I knew it was time when and I also went to Levante and looked at all like the Olmec heads and some stuff like, and
those
but
are in central Mexico, right?
they were found uncovered in Valente, or it's what's that state called? Veracruz, I think Veracruz. So in Mexico, how it goes like the little J or whatever,
Mhm.
it's the smallest point of the J. It's up by the,
Oh,
yeah, up there. So
okay.
yeah, and so it's pretty close to Palenque, which actually, if as a bird flies, is not that far from Tikal, Guatemala. So like that whole region there had some like, and they say Palenque is the city sister of Tikal. Like I don't know what that means by city sister, but there was also they know that there was like a travel system that was going on, and a trade system, and there was some connections going on with that. And I had already been to Tikal, and that was another one of those places where I I had never heard of Tikal ever in the history of my universe. And then in 2000, and I don't know, it's probably 15 or 16, I like in 1 week I heard about it like 3 times. And my friend calls me and says, "Hey, I have a tour group opening. We're going to go to Guatemala, and like another room opened up. Do you want to just come with me? It'll give you a huge discount, blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like the universe just opened the doors for me to go. So I said, "Yeah, okay, cool." So I jump. Anytime I feel that call, I just jump. Like we and you are going to go
Mhm.
do a thing pretty soon here. And literally I was on the phone with a friend, um and saying, "Oh yeah, I really want to go to Sedona with a bunch of magical people, like for a full week, and just do a bunch of stuff." And
You
as I got
did.
and as I got off the phone, there was a text from you about like, "Hey, do you want to come to Sedona for like the starseed thing for like a like in a month and a half from now?" And I was like, okay, yeah, that's like signal, that's alignment. Like I don't fight that. I don't like, if it does, I didn't have to go like, "Oh, what's my bank account right now?" Or, "Oh, what's this?" Like, what's my, I just had to be like, "Oh, okay, that's a universal punch going like, hey, poke, hey, go do that thing." And and if I follow that magnetic pulse of where I'm led, like things just happen that are way more awesome than if I resist it.
Yeah, and that's natural in you because I do read the blueprints on people's astrological charts, and you have the marking of the grid worker. So there is a grid working marking on there. So someone who is very connected to the earth, who like with their whole body is connected to the earth body. So when they take their body on someplace on the earth, they do tend to unlock, like you'll unlock something both simultaneously in yourself and in that point on the planet. So it's like it's a symbiotic relationship that happens. So the planet speaks to you and you listen, just like I guess the geology of the planet speaks to you. So you're familiar with geomancy, right?
Are by geomancy, do you mean like where you use certain rocks for certain healing modalities? Like, or
I
what do you
mean,
mean?
yeah, I mean that's one of the like I guess the ideas of geomancy, but it's like one of the oldest forms of healing that is known to us, like as humans. It goes back to the Druids, where they use different minerals and elements to like begin to heal aspects of the planet. And it also helped with like someone's ailment. Like for instance, like if someone's like really cold in a place in their house, the geomancer will come in and they'll like douse and they'll see what's going on under the ground of that part of the house. And they'll say, oh, there may be like something cold running through here, like water running deep underground. And so they'll put some elements in that part of on the ground there near that part of the ground of the home. And then they'll just change like the environment and the temperature of that space. So it's
Oh,
like they work, it's a very old Druid practice. And it's, I don't think it's studied enough these days because I think people don't take it seriously, but it's like actually an ancient practice of working with the minerals of the planet. So you like, people douse because it's like a science to them. But I mean, there are people who just super connect and can just tap in and tune in and like what elements and minerals are needed. I think the more that they study it. But
I because I guess I don't know. I take rocks from everywhere I go because like I hear rocks. That's like a bad thing, or not a bad thing, but that's like a weird thing that I have, where like I can hear buzzing off of certain rocks, and not all the time. Like most of the rocks that I have, like I have a museum in my room. Most of the rocks that I have, they wanted to come with me. They called me. Like I'll hear like a little buzz. I've even heard me 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 me. Like I've heard like them going like, pick me, pick me, pick me. And I'll be like, oh, okay, all right, come with me, little fella. I mean, like I collect rocks like a crazy person, and v- now I've started realizing that it's a way for me to tap into to keep them at home and tap into any place that I've like put my energy connection to. So it's kind of like a way to spread out um my hug of the earth. And then I can kind of use it as a port key to go back to anywhere I've been. But then also I some every once in a while I've noticed like, and I always carry rocks with me, like, and I've sometimes rocks want to be left other places. So that would be kind of interesting. I should look more into that. I haven't.
yeah, yeah. I bet you would find some of your Druid history in that when you researched it,
Yeah,
because
maybe.
yeah.
I feel
um,
like rocks are, a lot of people are probably not the people that are listening to this or whatever, but I'm just saying a lot of people that I know are like rocks are like way woo woo, just that's just cray cray for them. But if you really think about it, they are, I mean, they are the most, I mean, they're a sentience. There's a sentience to them. They are like part of the earth, and
yeah.
they have been here. We just are electric guests that get to experience their presence for a very short time, but they have been here a lot longer than we have, and they will be here a lot longer than we will be. And so I think there's a lot of energy wisdom to just get just by being in their presence.
Yeah, they hold a lot of memories. So when you connect to them, you can then, you know, download the memory from them if you're open to doing that, if you're attuned. Some people are attuned to the spirits and the nature of the mineral kingdom, which you are. So it makes sense that the earth would speak to you through those different elements. I'm connected to the air spirits, so I definitely get a lot of information from the air more than the earth. But lately, the past couple of years, I've really been connecting to the planet, and I felt myself really connecting to the earth more. And I'm really excited because now I get to like experience, the grid working kind of idea, which I really in the past I would do it kind of, but not really. I more like hold the point where I am in the place, right? I don't travel. But like people like you that are always called to traveling, I mean, you're really connected to the ley lines, right? And the electromagnetic of the planet. So it's like as an impulse. It's like there's like a mapping structure that you almost like are in tune with. So I don't know if does that resonate with you, where it's like, there's an electrical impulse in the planet that you're connected to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've gotten to a place where, well, I can when I'm at certain places, like my ears will start buzzing, like I'll know that I'm at some sort of crossing. And for me, I used to think like, oh my God, these ley lines and all that stuff, it was just so woo woo. Not, I love woo woo, so I'm not going to make fun of woo woo, but I'm just saying at one point I was just like, come on, whatever. Like that's just, but
You were
then
halfway, you're half in, half
I
out.
was like, I was kind of just, sometimes I think people just say things to say things or something. I don't really know. But then, so
Well,
what
skepticism, healthy skepticism is okay because it keeps us going.
so I'm just kind of like, yeah, I gotta know a little bit about this. But I did this psychedelic, which we can get into in a little bit later too. But I did this psychedelic called Judima that is it's a sister plant to ayahuasca, but it's like whatever, it's similar to that. And I was in Colombia and I was doing that. And when I did that, I saw the grid system. Like it was like I got to see like the spider web energetic threads of everything just going boom, 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 boom. And the entire time I was on this trip, I basically, like, this tree was looking at me explaining, like, without words, but like explaining to me how to use the grids. So like I
Mhm.
was I it was the first time I ever visually got to see them. Now whether this is all in my head or whatever, that's fine. But that was for me my personal confirmation that okay, like there is a threading on the planet and there are grid points, there are energetic ways to manipulate this matrix, and I think other people who use it nefariously already know that. So we might
Yep.
as well take power of you know doing it in a positive way.
Right. And what's the worst that can happen if you actually believe in this stuff and you go thinking that you're doing some kind of making a difference
Right.
and changing something in the planet? Oh, well, that's too bad. Oh, poor you. You get to
Yeah,
travel.
that's a
You get
good
to
point.
travel and touch different points of the planet and feel activated. Okay. Well, so that's the worst that can happen. I mean, so I prefer to actually understand that what's going on inside my head is really being reflected in my reality, because obviously we create a reality. But what is like the most powerful kind of point on the planet that you've been in your life where you felt like a real activation or something happened to you where you just felt like it was such a shift in you after you went there?
Um, there are there's been 4 places where, I've had well, maybe 5, where I've had, okay, so the first place I ever started hearing this, uh, whole crazy buzz was when I was, like, 23, I went to Stonehenge, and I was going, "This why are they humming like that? Like, what is that noise? Like, what's going on with that?" And, like, the girl I was with was like, "They're not humming. What are you talking about?" And I was like, "No, there's, like, a very loud humming coming off of them." Like, it felt like I was at a power plant, and they're going like, "Meow," like, it was just so loud. And every time I've gone to Stonehenge, I lived in England for 3 years, and, it I every time anytime someone would come visit me or whatever, I would always take them there, and it was very, very loud for me. I didn't think Stonehenge was particularly special in terms of, um I don't know, it didn't really do much for me, maybe I don't know, maybe it did and I didn't know. I was in my early 20s when I did that. But it did was the first thing that opened that feeling me of me knowing that there's something special to some of these old places. Then I would say the next really big one that hit me like a rock was, no pun intended, was a Saxe woman in Peru. And that is in Cuzco, Peru, and I had gone to Machu Picchu like the day before. Like I was on this trip where it was supposed to just, we were doing a yoga trip. It was just like, oh, guys, got a free day. Go do what you want here in Cusco. And some girls were like, oh, let's go shopping for some wool. And then like some other lady was like, you want to go to Sexy Woman? And I was like, Sexy Woman? You want me to go to a strip club in Cusco? I'm not doing that. No. Sexy Woman, it's a ruin. And I was just like, oh, ruins? Yeah, okay, sure. I'll do that. So I go there, and I I I was walking around alone for a large part of it and just crying like a baby crying, because that's the first awakening that I had where I just was there as looking at them, I'm touching them. I don't know, like I know some people now are saying like, oh, it's racist to say that we didn't build those. We didn't build those. Okay. It's not, I'm not, I don't know. The Incas didn't build that. White people from Europe didn't build that. I don't know who built that, but somebody using advanced technology that we no longer have access to built those. And maybe it was the indigenous people, but they had access to advanced lost technology. And maybe it really was galactics. Maybe, I don't know, but it like the same noise that was going on at Stonehenge was times 100 there. It was just like, it was almost so overwhelming. All I could do is I just understood the lie of what how much of our history and our indoctrination camp that is school systems and all that. I really just like it broke open for me, and I started to just like have to process that. And since then it's been a really big journey for me, trying to go to different megalithic sites and ancient ruins and try to find these globalized hallmarks that can connect all of them together, which I am working on right now. I'm building a database with some friends who also are doing this research, and look forward to that because that's going to be amazing one day. But
Well, that's
then,
exciting.
yeah, it's super exciting. But then Mahabalipuram in India, I can't even tell you how ancient that place was. I would be walking around it, and I would have all these flashes where I would see what it looked like when it was in construction. And that was just super bizarre. Like India is very special. And when I was in India, I felt like I was in another planet or another world. It was just such a special experience. Then the last one or the other two were Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Is like every time I've gone there, I've either seen like some really unique UFO, or I've had like there's such a story untold there. I can't even, if you're an American and you can't make it to India, or you can't make it to, wherever, like Peru or something, go to Chaco Canyon. It's in our country, and it is like the Great Pyramids of this country. It is just beyond magical. I had some time lapses there where I would look back and I would see what it looked like when it was fully built. I was like in a different time, and I was kind of scared for a split second if I would get back to my time or not. And then I had a 30-minute deja vu when I was in like, I can't remember, it's the town, if you go to Santiago, Chile, and you go straight to the beach, it's like an hour and a half from Santiago, but and it's got like all this art or something. I had a 30-minute deja vu on the seaport, like looking for a sunset, and I thought, okay, like I realized, I don't know if that was this place or if it was just like I had just witnessed a solar eclipse or something, but that to me, there was some sort of weird vortex going on there of time.
Okay.
So anyway, those are the places. Sorry, that was long question.
Okay. That's interesting. Wow, you've traveled a lot. I mean, that's definitely
Not
like
during
around.
COVID, really. I mean, not much more. Oh, sorry, I said the C word. But
Yeah, you did a lot of that before lockdowns, right?
yeah,
Or
I mean, I did some Mexico since lockdowns. But yeah, I did all that before.
well, it's interesting how you started like with the Stonehenge, because Stonehenge is such a geomancy project from some of the originators of that, because that's what geomancy is. They put literal rocks on areas and elements like rocks and areas to actually activate those points with, electrical magnetic pulse.
Mm.
And it's actually associated to the timeline, the Stonehenge is associated timeline of Atlantis. So, and Atlantis, as we know, is a very technological time that was highly advanced in technology through using crystal grids and crystals and different minerals, but in a scientific way that really sparked a technological advancement in the civilization. So the fact that you felt like almost like a humming, like almost like an electrical humming, it makes a lot of sense.
And like I don't follow astrology or anything like that all the time, so I just bumble like an idiot into the world, right? And
Right.
I happened the very first time I went there happened to be there on the summer solstice, and that's the only day of the year that they let you touch the stones and like get up close to them. And this was like 17 years ago or something. So but yeah, like my first time seeing Stonehenge, I was able to go up and touch them. So that was also
Wow.
a
Wow.
and I ended up the 3 years I lived there just by accident. I ended up there every summer solstice. Like I didn't plan it. It just sort of like someone was visiting me then, and we ended up. Oh, that was the day that ended up working, and we went. So I don't know like what happens with that, but yeah.
So interesting because yeah, the summer solstice is also the high point of energy. It's the highest point of the sun that is in the sky during the year. So
Mhm.
like again, there's that electromagnetic peak, that you're actually really taking charge, your body is taking charge from when you go there. And this is like an element of yourself from a different, timeline, different dimension that knows these things that is pushing your physical body to do it. Now, like the real secret to this magic is really coming into consciousness of what's happening, because then we have control and like we understand what we're doing, and like our higher dimensional self is not, sometimes it's in charge and we just have to let it be in charge, like the higher self or whatever we call it is in charge. But
Yeah.
like when we come into union and alignment with that, like we're so empowered because we're so driven, and we're so sure about our different directions and paths, and we don't question too much. But that, like, it seems like you are very aligned, like when you do feel called to go somewhere and then it shows up for you, you go. And so like you are really working that earth grid and really in touch and connected to Gaia. So that's really cool. That's really cool. Have you ever been to the Middle East or anywhere like around Iran, Iraq,
No,
like
just Egypt.
Israel?
I have a call to go to Petra, Jordan, and to go to I've been really, really, really wanting to go to Israel and to go to
Okay, Israel. Yeah.
yeah, and I've really, 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 really wanted to go to Turkey bad. Like I've put
Okay.
Turkey off like 2 or 3 years now, and that one is like calling me in a way that I have to go in 2023 or else like I'll explode. Like it's like I
Oh,
have to go.
wow. Okay.
That's probably
To
like number one on
Turkey?
my list right now is Turkey.
Okay, because that part of the planet is really feeling like it needs help right now. Have you been to Alhambra by any chance in Spain?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I haven't. I've been to Spain, but I have not been there.
Yeah. I think that's been recently going through some projects. So that's really interesting. So right now you feel called to go to Sedona and then next in the Middle East somewhere?
Yeah, and in February I'm doing a big Native American ruins thing. I always have a call to go to Chaco. I think like Chaco is one of my like uh I don't know. It's one of my callings or something. It's a place that I'm going to have to go to many, many times in my life. So it's like it's a time portal. It's like something goes back in time, but it's something deep about our history of humanity. So I don't really know how more to explain it than that, but I think there's an entrance to Hollow Earth there. And
Oh, okay.
um yeah, and I think that it's cloaked. I think it's intentionally hidden from people and from their consciousness. And I think like there's no it's the most isolated place in the country. Like there's no if you look on Google Maps, it'll tell you like, oh, it's like 3.5 hours from Albuquerque or 4 or something like that. There's it like it's an hour and a half on a dirt road. Like it's the craziest place to get to. It's it's not made hospitable to go to. There's no running water for a shower. There's no like campsite is very, very rudimentary. There's no hotels anywhere near it. Like it's like there's the national park has a like a museum thing, and then there's some national park houses and then a campground. And then other than that, you have to go drive like an hour and a half to 2 hours away to stay at a hotel to go to it. It's very,
Wow.
very isolated.
So what do you do when you're there? Do you hike?
Yeah, like I hike, and it's yeah, I do a lot of hiking. I do a lot of touching of the I touch everything, I go around everything, and I start like I have a lot of visualizations of what was there before, and I get like downloads when I'm there.
Oh, wow.
I just walk around getting down. Like it was a city that was equipped to hold over 100,000 people. I mean, we're talking like before skyscrapers. It was the tallest building. You know, I mean, it was like 9-story buildings, and this was all abandoned before the Spanish conquistadors ever set foot on the country. Like it was abandoned in 1100, and that's like mainstreams like saying that there's no bodies found on Chaco Canyon. So 100,000 people left in the middle of the night with turquoise jewelry and like full pots, and just think like it was just abandoned for I mean, even if you got attacked by a warring tribe or something, you would think you would take some stuff with you as you're running out. I don't know. I mean, it just it's there's a real, I think they were taken personally. I don't know if they were taken into inner earth or galactically. I'm not really sure. I feel like there was a higher consciousness that existed there that was something. I'm not even 100% sure. Like some people talk about like I think is really, I don't really like the evidence for it, but like they say that there was like I think there's only been 36 skeletons found there, and like well, one of them had, they said it looked like cannibalism or something, like it had some gnaw marks on it, that whatever. I don't resonate with any of that research really. It doesn't really sit true to me. Like something I don't know how to explain it, but just go and you'll see. You guys will see. I promise you won't be disappointed. I've never met anybody that's went to Chaco Canyon and been disappointed.
Okay. That's interesting. That's very interesting. That's good. That's next on my list then. Do you ever feel kind of lost souls when you go to those kinds of areas? Like any, do you ever feel like who lived there before and kind of feel their energy there, locked there, anything like that?
And a large part of something I like, um I'm not a medium. I don't really see ghosts. I have a couple of times. But if I do feel like heavy energy, like sometimes I just like sit with it and just give it love, and uh and just doing that alone is kind of enough to, I think, kind of help release some of that. Because sometimes I
Okay.
think I'm looking at scarring of the planet, and that
Hmm.
I mean I'm even like if I see like a mine spot, like a place that was mined, or some part that looks particularly um unkempt and just what you might say ugly on the earth or whatever, I it's like I'm like a like I'm trying to like be like a boyfriend who's like, no babe, you don't look fat in that, you look good. Like I'll be like to the earth, I'll just be like, I'll be like, even your ugly parts are pretty, it's okay. No, that scar's not that blown up mine from the mountain that they took out. It's not that bad. It's okay. Look at the trees are still growing around it. Look at it's good though. Look at, like I always am like trying to give her some confidence, being like, no, it's
Oh, you
okay.
are a geomancer. It's like georomancer.
She's a romancer.
That's awesome. Okay, so you're like more really in tune to the planet of that area than the like the people and the energy that was
In
there.
general, I don't really give that much of a shit about individuals. I mean, sorry. I'm just like, yeah, like a lot of people are really into psychology and stuff like that. And I'm like, cool. I'm more really into her, the actual earth herself.
Yeah. So, I mean, have you ever, what is like, what do you feel like a vortex? Like, what do you think is like embodied in a vortex when you talk about a vortex on the planet?
So my latest understanding of the vortex stuff is, and then I want to hear your thoughts on what you think it is. But my latest understanding is I told you my Antarctica dream. So I had this dream about where I was sleeping with some rocks, to trying to get some information from the rocks, and I was holding these rocks that were
What
from
kind of rocks were they?
they were some rocks from, you want me to show you? Well, they're just these like regular, just nothing special rocks. They're from
Okay.
Antarctica. And I have a friend who went there and brought them back.
Wow.
And I
You have a piece of Antarctica that you slept
I have
with.
three pieces of Antarctica, three different points, three different ports. Yes.
Wow.
So I was sleeping with those, like literally like putting them in like I put a little bra on so that I could have them touching my skin at all time. And I was like, boop, boop, just like I wanted
The
to like,
extra sensitive points.
extra sensitive points. Yes, I guess so. Like I wanted it to touch my skin. It wasn't enough just to be in bed with me. Like it needed to be touching me. Like, and I was,
Yeah.
so anyway, um, and I saw the I don't know how to explain it, but like I basically was like, okay, if this is the planet, I was taken like kind of macro view, and I saw that this was a realm, and it was just like the flower of life but in 3D, and there was like a point in the center, like, and that was like the consciousness of the earth, but this was the bubble, and there was other bubbles like all around, like 3D all around, but we are in like this ocean wave doing whatever, like it's like Olympic circles in 3D flower of life form. Currently on the wave of the universe we're in, we're kind of pushing into this other one a lot. And that was the point that they meet, is like the iris of the eye. The point that they meet is in Antarctica. And so what Antarctica was for me was, it was showing me that it was like an illusion. It was like the ice and everything about it was a glamour that was put over to psychologically, physically, and just keep us out. Like it was a gateway though to keep out of it. So anyway, I that was just the one we were pushed into most, but there were other ones all over that are still touching us, and I think like all over the planet that were still touching us. And I thought to myself, like, I think that's what vortexes are. Vortexes are like these where points of other realms and other dimensions, maybe, I don't know what a realm versus a dimension is. These are just words, but these other planes were like intersecting a slightly bit, and the vortex is like the connection point. So there's places, and I do think Sedona is a vortex, meaning I think
Wow. That's a great explanation. I think it's a great description.
and I happen to have two balls, like to use this right here handy. So that's sort of how I view them. What
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a similar, I mean, that's actually a better explanation than what I feel like a vortex is. A vortex basically I feel like is a location that's essentially like a stargate, or a portal into another dimension. As far as physically explaining how that works, I don't have that great of an explanation. So I think that's a perfect explanation, where the two planes meet and intersect, forms a a realm, a connection, a magical realm that connects the two. So I mean, for vortexes also, like I feel like they have a tendency to take you to a timeline as well, to send information as well as receive information, where it is almost like a black hole in my mind, where it just like spins,
Yeah, definitely. There's
and
spirals there for sure.
yeah, or it just like begins to spin energies that are spinning there. So, when someone's attuned to that, like they can actually access that vortex. Some people are powerful enough to shut down that vortex. Some people are powerful enough to open it up even more. So, that's why it's interesting, this whole idea of consciousness, because it takes us back to the idea of consciousness, like why consciousness is so important. Because when we have the consciousness that these things can occur, we become more powerful in how we interact with them, and then we're not just succumb to the energy that's happening to us, but we become more of a participant of it, actively. So yeah, well, that's really cool.
So let's talk about speaking of realms and stuff like that. You've done a lot of plant medicine, I've done some plant medicine, and we've both come out the other end, and we've seen some people who've gone a little bit on the whoa, they liked their plant medicine a lot. So like it's not all roses and daisies and stuff. So let's talk about the why it may not be for everybody sort of situation thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, that gets like into a whole nother subject, but I mean, it's interesting how we're going to jump from the planet's energy into the plant energy, because plant is from the planet, and then the plant holds memory from the planet. So when you consume the plant, especially something as ancient as a tree, because when we consume trees, and ayahuasca comes from a tree, this memory of that, that, I mean, the memory of that structure is so powerful in how it interacts with us. So it's essentially DNA interacting with our DNA. So it's all about DNA consciousness there, and the activation of DNA, or the turning on of DNA, or it even can be the scrambling of DNA, because when the energy intersects between the plant, especially some powerful plant like ayahuasca, but then there's like the whole mushroom mycelium realm, which is like the internet of the planet, right? The planet's internet access points where it communicates through the ground structure. So that's interesting too. When you take the mycelium, you begin to like really tune into the communication of the planet. So like these things are initiations into a connection to the planet, like direct connection. Like if you're like living in a 3D world, like working a 3D job, like having a 3D life, and have like no, understanding or even interest in any of this. And like your friends are doing ayahuasca because they're like, oh, it's the latest thing to do. Let's go do it and like open up our third eye or something.
Mm.
And you go and you do it and you're like, holy crap. And you go into that crazy psychedelic experience where you start to see your ancestors or future ancestors, predecessors or whatever. And then you're like, wow, that was cool. And then you like want to do it again. Is that what you're asking? So it's like people who get really into it, like, whoa, that was really amazing. It
Or
changed
I
my
mean, like I
life.
was
And
even
then,
kind of gonna want to veer more eventually into. I mean, because okay, for me, I feel like that's valuable. Like if you are a
yeah,
complete, like for me, it was the time in which I did it. It was 5 years ago. I did it. I was 35, and I it was I took a macro dose of psilocybin
mhm.
and had an ego death, and I felt like
And
it
that's part of the initiation, right? Is the ego death.
yeah, and it was really valuable. I'm really glad that I had it. I don't necessarily know that and this sounds cocky, and I don't really like to say, I mean, I don't know what else to say with it, but I don't know that many people in my real life that could have handled that and still
Right.
not been like to the level that I tripped balls. Like I don't know that many people that would have come back okay. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so I think there requires some level of openness to and I don't know, maybe they would. Maybe they all would all have been great or whatever. I just don't think it's necessarily that kind of experience is for everybody.
No, definitely not. And again, it goes back to the DNA structure. Like if you have a DNA that's not ready to be activated, and your DNA is activated prematurely, you go through an initiation prematurely, you become psychotic. Like, with Carl Jung, who said, the same waters the mystic swims is where the psychotic drowns. So it's like you have to be very careful and be ready. You have to be on the path. Like I'm saying, just someone who's in the three-dimensional world who doesn't understand it, who doesn't even like want to even understand. I mean,
right, they're
doesn't,
not
because
even
we're all have
curious about.
levels. Yeah, like we all have levels of understanding, and that's part of our levels of initiation experiences. But you know, usually people drawn to ayahuasca are usually spiritual to begin with,
Mhm.
have some spiritual interest. But like something like I said, like mushrooms and mycelium, like that seems to be more of a mainstream, like kind of recreational thing right now, where everyone's doing it, everyone their mom is doing it. So um the macro dose that you did, I mean, you have to imagine like we're all going to be put on our level of what we can handle. And people, if you want to push yourself, their boundaries are going to be obviously subjective and differently for everyone. But the problem therein lies when we become extremely dependent on these things that are outside of ourselves, because they're gifts, of initiation points. But when we become like extremely dependent on them and we rely on them to reach that level of consciousness and activation, point, like constantly, that's when it actually works in reverse. Those things begin to work in a reverse matrix for us. So instead of like allowing us to escape this matrix of reality of constriction and limitation, we are putting a limit on ourselves inherently by being like, I can't do this alone, so I need this medicine or I need this thing to do it. So that intention is getting set into that magical medicine and then getting pulled back into ourselves as, reverse energy that's now draining our energy, because that intention there was, I can't do it alone, right? So as opposed to the initial point, the initiation point of like, I'm curious, let me find out, which is really what mysticism is all about, right? It's like, I'm curious, the world is unknown, I want to open myself up. Okay, perfect, that's a great intention. But it's like, okay, I need to have the experience again, I need to know this, I need to do that. That's all ego, right? So it's like, then you're like setting all of that onto the medicine. And so that becomes a problem when people get stuck in the reverse matrix, which is essentially like a fourth dimensional lock into like an astral realm. So you want to get into the
Yeah,
astral.
I was kind of wanting to get into the, oh my gosh, I have to rename myself on this thing. I just thought, yeah, like the eighth sphere or maybe not even, I don't even know if it's necessarily, if it's that or not, that, Gigi Young and Rudolf Steiner and all those people talk about. But I mean, I do feel like I think that's very important. And I'll just reiterate it, that you said about how, like there's mysticism and magic within us all, and we can all tap into it naturally through the natural human instrument, through dreamland, through meditation, through breath work, through just like, really self-examination and really sitting and trying to explore consciousness within your own body. But yeah, I've noticed, I mean, like I have this one friend who basically did ayahuasca every day for a year. And
What?
yeah, like, well, he was trying to become a shaman and also, and it's not,
Was he studying with a tribe?
yeah, I was
Like
studying
a
with this other guy. Anyway, long story short, like, I don't really think it didn't really get him what he desired. I will just put it that way. Okay. And like I think that it's one of those things where even it eventually starts wearing off. Like it didn't, he wouldn't be, you have to take more and more to get what he had gotten, and then sometimes wasn't let in. And I think that it's such a gift. Like one of the messages I last time I did mushrooms, which is like, I don't know that I'll ever do them again, just because this was the message I got, was just like, you kind of this the concept of, you knocked on the door and someone answered. Okay, so you don't need to continue ringing the doorbell. Like it was like one of those things where for me, I needed personal confirmation within my own self that there was more to this reality than the material reductionism that they see. I had experienced a anesthesiology, or what do you call it? Like where I had one wisdom tooth and I got it taken out, and it was like, okay, count backwards from 100, and I was like, oh yeah, 99, 99. And then I woke up and it was like, are you guys going to start soon? And it was like, yeah, oh, you're already done, everything's done. And that depressed me for so many years, because I just thought like, oh wow, that's it. Like when you die, that's it. It's like black, you don't know nothing, it's it, that's it. We're a computer, we turn off and that's it, that's all that happens. And that was my experience of having taken that. I've never lost consciousness in dream time, or when I do lose consciousness, or if I don't remember, I still have a concept of like, I've been asleep for this amount of hours. I still have the passage of time is felt within my body. This was just like boop, boop, nothing. And so that really, really just was not good for me. So this countered that. Like this like gave me like, it's like, okay, no, you want to know what else is behind the veil? Like you knock, we'll answer, we'll give you a show, but then realize that this is a gift. Your time incarnated as a human being in this body is a gift, and you don't need to live here. You'll go here when you die. You'll be here again someday. You need to be here in the now, in this body. You need to be embodied and present, because and I'm already 40, and I'm just like, damn, I'm like halfway through this like gift. And it's just so like it's such a precious finite time. So really your job is nothing more than just to like appreciate this gift. Like it's a really awesome gift. And if you really want to make the most of your gift, be the fullest expression of your unique self and don't try to be like an ant in a like, you know, or in a Nazi marching parade where you're following everybody next to you, like la 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 la, like blindfolders on. Like my advice to you would be to be your most unique expression of yourself. And that's the best possible thing you can do for the source. That's the biggest gift you can give back for this gift. That's the gift exchange. Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah. Yeah, it is a wonder that, you got this information by taking the plant medicine, but then the plant medicine also gave you the information that you don't need the plant medicine. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's such a unique kind of experience. But I've always seen it as an initiation that we go through, and that, each person can go through their earthly shamanic initiation through the plant medicine. But at what point do you say, okay, I am a galactic infinite being having a human experience, and I don't need anything to do that for me? And so it's like, that's when you've reached another level of initiation. And unfortunately, a lot of people are locked into that, everything needs to go through a medicine, everything has to go through a plant, everything has to go through a material, everything has to go through like, something material, right? Something tangible. Even though those are really important, there are other ways to kind of connect. And just connecting through our body is massively powerful. Just like, sensing our body and being in our body, and like, our body is like, so like people are constantly trying to leave the body and escape the body. And it's like that's really interesting. Like, why are we trying to leave this vessel when we're here to be this vessel? So that's a whole level of interesting mind control in of itself that we need to pay attention to. Like, what is that impetus to leave the body and experience something greater than
And this new notion of transferring your consciousness to like, like a
ah
computer or a thing like that. I
Yeah, with
always
the
find that,
singularity. Yeah, the
yeah,
concept of the singularity, right? With AI singularity kind of concept, where Kurzweil speaks about the imminent singularity where we're all headed to, which is to be able to take our consciousness and transcend the body, which we do anyway, naturally, organically.
yeah,
Um
that's like I
but
do
it's
feel like that's going to be it where that's going to be a two-path thing where like some people go to that way and some people go
right.
this
Well,
way and then never the two do meet again because like that's just like okay,
now we're getting into
you do you,
bifurcation. Yeah,
have
yeah.
fun with that.
Yeah, we're getting to bifurcation now. We're just the bifurcation of timelines where, where are we going to go? What path are we going to, like, what is the splitting of the world, the splitting of the earths, what path are we going to go into? But, it all comes down to frequency too, frequency patterns. Like our consciousness is a frequency wave. So like that whole new earth concept, I don't think is materialistic. Like people think like there's this whole other second earth, right?
Yeah.
It is essentially a consciousness. It is a frequency pattern that we will like be able to hop onto. So then we'll start to connect really easily when we're on that frequency wave pattern. If we're in the same consciousness of like, I need this plant medicine to feel psychic, then we're going to be on the materialistic plane. We're going to continue to be there, which is essentially the fourth dimension, which is essentially the sphere. And so in order to go into that fifth dimensional and beyond, which is what the new earth is, said to be, the higher dimensional point is, it has to go through the heart. The heart is the portal to that. And that means that we have to really feel into our heart. We don't need to rely on our psychic senses or our clairs or our, ability to transcend. What we need to do is just move into our body, further into our body, into our heart. And then we feel everything without having to avoid anything. That takes us onto that new earth, higher frequency dimensional plane. For a while I was trying to, activate my clairs for so long. I'm like, I need to be psychic and activate my
Me too.
third
I was like,
eye. And
I
it's
got to
like,
get my pineal gland completely cleared out so that I
yeah. Yeah, I'm like, what do I see? What kind of clair do I have? And it's like, oh, I'm clairsentient. I feel, and it's like, okay, so like, what does all that mean? Because at a certain point, none of that matters because you don't need validation. Again, you don't need a materialistic kind of approach. You don't need someone to validate you being like, oh, you're right, or oh, yes, you need to do it X, Y, and Z way in order to get that, talent. And it's like, no, it's actually inherently in us. All we need to do is like kind of deprogram a lot of the belief system that has been, essentially trying to keep us away from our power,
Well,
which,
so much of my life now is about unlearning. I'm
yeah,
always like, everything I have to question is like, am I doing, if, was this just because I'm told this? Like, why do I believe this? Like, what is that? How did this come about? Like, how did this discern? It's really trying to fill into that. And now I'm just kind of like, oh, if I want to heal, I just fast. You just don't eat anything. That's the best way to heal from anything for me. And then I'm like, I'm like, why do I think vitamins work? Why do I think that like I don't need marijuana to relax. I don't need beer to like have a good time, or whatever, alcohol to have a good, I don't need coffee to wake up. Like I don't need your substances or your anything. Like you don't, I don't know, you're just naked alone in the ocean. You don't need anything but the tool in which you came in. You really can do so much with just
I know, but I mean, those are lovely gifts though to have. I
they're
mean, I love
cool.
my tea.
Sometimes
I love
just don't get
my
dependent on me.
chocolate.
I'm not
Yeah,
saying I don't like,
yeah.
I'll never drink alcohol again, or I'll never, I'm not, I'll never have some chocolate. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like, it's that whole concept of you use it, don't let it use you.
Yeah, absolutely. When it becomes enslaved to anything, it becomes it's a consciousness trap. And there's like so many consciousness traps. I mean, you just
Oh
see
yeah,
like
like our phones are huge ones.
our phones know us better than we know ourselves at this point, and it's
Mhm.
so weird.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like it's one of those things, like what are you thinking about internally, like what are you fighting, and for so many star seeds I see the consciousness trap of like, I need to be a good person and make sure other people are taken care of, while they do not take care of themselves, or they do not know how to empower themselves, and they're out there trying to do it for everyone else. And it's like, that's a consciousness trap in of itself. That's it's all like, that's what the plant medicines take you through, those ego trap tests. That's the ego trap test. It's essentially, it's a consciousness trap test, so that you can see the patterns of like where you're being stopped, where you're being stunted in your spiritual growth, and then how to take care of that. So,
I mean, I have like I always have to like think about like, okay, am I in that like whatever the like victim, perpetrator, savior, like am I playing
yeah.
those roles right now? Is it, am I being a victim? Am I being a perpetrator?
Yeah.
Am I trying to save somebody? Like what's going on here? Like I always have to ask myself that. And I'm like, and then if I am, do I want to do that? And why? Why am I doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. The ego is, it's such a beautiful little game piece. I love the ego. It's so funny to play, and I have to like check my ego all the time. And
Yeah.
and it's like a big giant roller coaster of I don't know. It's
Well, it's
interesting.
one of those things, like it has to serve us. Like we wouldn't be here doing this show, this podcast right now if it weren't for our egos being like, hey, I got to do this. But it's like, at what point do we let it take the driver's seat? At one point, is our soul taking the driver's seat? So, it's always like a very narrow path, very delicate road that we have to drive down, and just kind of know, our surroundings. And it's all it's really internal. It's all individual, but it's cool when we can, I guess, co-create together and be like, oh, you hold these similar values and so do I. So let's create something, and let's make a massive change. Because when you do get multiple people, like, that are in the same resonance, frequency wave resonance on a certain part of the land, like that land becomes, activated. It goes through healing, it goes through shifts and changes. And then so do those people's cellular DNA, because our DNA and our cellular structure is connected to the planet again. So it just takes us back to where we started, where it's like, it's so important to kind of be in tune with ourselves and know that, the information it's coming through us is, it's probably really important for us. And then just to pay attention to it and to give it, credibility, because again, we're so used to just being like, where's the proof? I need proof, or I need validation, or I need materialistic
But
kind of backing up of what I'm thinking. And it's
it's
like, that's another trap,
it is another trap.
because we're
And
not empowering ourselves.
And a perfect example is that we have a mutual friend, Nicole Collard, and she's a beautiful starseed and wonderful lady. And I texted both of y'all on a group text, and I was like, they're putting a 5G tower, like literally right by my bedroom, like 100 feet from my bed, where I sleep. It's like it's like in the neighbor's backyard across the street from me. And I'm like, oh my God, look at this. Like, and I sent it to them. And Nicole's response was just like, oh wow, like why, like, and she's a creatrix. She uses that word, that she's a creatrix, which I love that. I need to think about that more. But she was just like, yeah, like why don't you take that energy, and instead of thinking it as being negative, why don't you like transfer it and create it into something positive that goes out to everybody. And then I'm kind of thinking to myself like, oh, actually, that's, I think, how I will go about this. Like, I'm not going to be victim to that, because I was it again. I was like, oh, I'm victim. I was playing victim. I got the 5G tower next to me. I'm the victim. It's like, no, like, why don't I just, I don't know, I'm not going to be the savior where I'm going to save everybody and their mama's dog. But what I am going to do is I'm going to change it into, I'm going to, like, in my own eternal mind and head, and like, we're going to tweak that frequency to where it's like the exact optimal frequencies that's coming through that promotes cell health. And that's just boom, that's what I'm going to do, and that's how it's going to be, and that's the end of that story, and move on. And but it's really nice to be around other people who are on the up and up, or I don't know what you want to call it, whatever,
the
like
upward spiral.
on the upward spiral, because
Yeah.
like that for me was like, oh, that was a really quick like alignment check to where I was like, oh, thank you, Nicole. Like, that's awesome. Like, that got me in, like, out of my victim mode quicker, So it's like, I really do think it's important to have awakened friends or something.
Yeah, because we are constantly creating. We're creating our thoughts, we're creating our reality, we're creating our experiences. So like we can definitely be discerning, obviously, and have discernment in every situation. But at what point are we continuously creating negative experiences that are going down a spiral, the downward spiral, which is essentially what the 5D negative ions can do. I mean, positive ions, it's actually positive ions that create the negative experience, but how the electrical simulation of it can do to our bodies is it can negatively affect us. So if we're not aware, if we're not conscious of it, then we'll just let it do that. We're not like in tune. We're not in tune. So it gets us sick, right? We're just sick. We're like, I don't know why I felt sick. But like when we're conscious of it,
so easily get back into it. Like, you can
it
easily
is.
get triggered into it.
It is, because it's a mass consciousness. It's like, oh, it's fine. Everything's fine. And then bypassing everything, right? Everything's fine. It's not, there's not real. There's no evidence of that being just, destructive. And it's like, okay. Well, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. Okay. What if it isn't destructive? What's the worst thing you did? Intend and imagine an upward spiral and using that, the electromagnetic frequency of it to help you, up spiral your energy and ascend. I mean, if that's the worst that can happen, okay. I mean, that, and of course we take precautions, like we wear orgone, we have our orgone, we have like our different copper things. So we have
like,
we do what we can.
I got a bunch of shungite all over the place,
Yeah. But then with the intention, it's even more powerful, right? When you're putting that intention in there, because intention is everything. When it goes back to when we talk about plant medicine or anything that we're doing in the material realm, when we manifest, we always say intention is everything. So, it's like, it goes back to that idea of intention.
Yeah.
And Nicole's a very powerful, manifestor in that way, understands, the codes, that the universe uses to operate. And, the dark uses it, and the dark, you can go down that path of being used by it, or you can use it to your advantage. Yeah. So anyway, it all comes back to being conscious and aware. So just talking about these things brings it into light. And that's like really a big thing, was when it's what, light work is, right? Is bringing consciousness into situations. Cause then when you take it out of the dark, it gets into the light, so you just pull it out of the dark, which is where it's hidden, which is really misinformation or disinformation or things that aren't being said or talked about. And then you bring it into the light and you just talk about it and you discover and you explore it and you curiously investigate it. And then it's like,
So
the alchemy.
Do you think that, like, I mean, I don't know, it could all be in my head and it could just be my world, but I'm finding that, I do think there is a quickening of consciousness, meaning, like, I think that more people are becoming conscious of you know, just like of the fact that they are a energetic being having a physical experience kind of thing. Um, or at least more people that I know are kind of starting to question that than ever have before. Do you think that there is a common accumulation point, like an event, like a thing, or do you think this is going to be a gradual human evolution going forward?
Let me ask you what you think.
That's a good
Because
question because it's like both of them. I've had I've known since I was born that I came here to help, which is an egoic, stupid thing, but, like, I think I've came here to help. Um, that's I felt like that since I was born, and I always felt like I'm with a bunch of people who are very young. Like, I've always felt older than most people, and I've always felt, I don't know how to explain it, like, I had always had the sense that I'm here for a show. There's a show. There's something that's gonna happen at some point.
yep.
And that's cool. Like if I make it to 80 as an old lady and I just, you know, or not like I say 100 and something, and then, you know, like I die in my bed, you know, and it's nice and stuff. That'd be great. I just don't know that it's really gonna go down that way because I feel like I f- my heart says, yeah, there's gonna be some sort of bifurcation. There's going to be a point of bifurcation, like a fork in the road. But then I do think COVID was a big part of sort of that. But then another part of me is okay with, or my logical brain says it's going to be gradual.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
That's
what if it's
also it's a half-assed answer, but it's
no?
half-assed baked in my own self. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what if it's both? Here's the thing. A lot of us star seeds, that consider ourselves more star seeded, we get slack for the fact that we think we're special. And people are like, "Oh, that's trap. You think you're star seed, think you're so special." But here's the thing, we are because we come in with a lot of memories that other people don't have, and they don't need. I mean, we come in with a lot of understanding and memories without having. We're less material, in essence, and so like because of that, we hold on to a lot of our memories, and we have a lot of sensory understanding more than having to have material understanding. I mean, some people obviously who don't think they're star seeds, they may be star seeds, but they may be just be like they may have planned their life to be extremely materially dense until
Yeah.
a certain point where they get activated too. So that activation point, you're talking about, people talk about the solar flash, the expectation of solar flash, but there have been a lot of geomagnetic activities on the planet, including solar flares, especially these last couple of years have been really insane. So part of the planetary activation and planetary experience is going to be in response to us. So, like again, some of the star seeds we come in because we're here to do our own work, essentially, our own healing and activation and work. And like you travel the grid points, not going to activate our DNA. And what happens is then the planet gets activated. So the more of us doing our work, the more of us on our path, the more the planet gets activated. And so when the planet gets to a certain point, it becomes like a tipping point, right? So
Mhm.
like that's probably, what that would be. It would be like it could be a solar flash, some kind of tipping point. And of course, as we know, the planet is not, when we talk about the solar system, everything is connected. Everything travels at a certain it's all on an ecliptic, first of all, and it's all traveling together. And that's why it's a planet, it's on the ecliptic. We can get into all that another time, but like the planet is connected to other planets, including the sun. So it all works together. It's all working together, and nothing is separate and nothing is in isolation, including us being connected to all of it. So as we see more and more people being like awakening to their next like evolutionary understanding right now, and to questioning what's happening, and to looking at things differently, and realize, the matrix structure is not actually having their best interests at heart, and waking up through that, it's all happening. And yes, I do feel like there is going to be some kind of shift in 2027, in particular, and we're headed towards that, and that is going to be the peak. 2027 is when we're going to see the massive change on planet. But yeah, it's also going to be gradual. It's not going to be like, it's going to be both. Like there's going to be like sudden geomagnetic activity, but there's also going to be gradual changes that are going to take long periods of time to put down new foundations, that kind of thing. So I totally agree with you. It's both.
Yeah, I mean, and I was and I was kind of going sometime between 2024 and 2026, but 2027, that makes sense. I 2030 and now are going to look completely different. I feel,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. But don't be scared. Like it's not going to be bad. Like I don't, it doesn't have to be bad. Like whatever it is, it's like,
I mean, it's like, I mean, you look at it, was COVID bad? I mean, yeah, it was bad in one perspective,
oh,
but
I
another
hated
perspective,
it. But
another perspective, I don't know. I kind of, I got enjoyed being home and doing gardening and reading and stuff like that for a while.
well, it definitely showed me who my friends were and weren't. It definitely, like, I definitely got a clear picture on I got a I got a new lesson on people that I had never I didn't know I needed. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It wasn't in itself an awakening on many levels too. It put people sometimes in the dark more. So, that's another thing about plant medicine. You do plant medicine like ayahuasca, you're like go through the darkness. You have to move through the shadow darkness. They need people have like, bad trips or whatever. And it's just to kind of show you, like, it's usually people who are like way too bright and shiny and happy all the time. And it's like, hey, there's a dark side to life. Like really, there's a shadow aspect. And it's not like what you think it is. Sometimes it's necessary to see it so that at the end of it, on the other side, you become whole. Like you're integrated.
Yeah.
You're like, I see what is shadow and I see what is light. And I choose this. It's not because I'm trying to avoid it. It's because I see it all, and it's like, I make the decision. You're empowering. You're
You
not like
know, and
resistant.
I believe that duality is it keeps things from being boring, because if you were all black or all light, like both would suck equally horrible, like if you were in like a giant plane of, I'm not even talking about like good or bad right now. I'm talking about like literally the concept of black and white, like like um like you have to have things, you have to have shadows, like to have materialization, you have to have a plane for something to shine on, you
Yeah.
have to, yeah, so it's just in that kind of respect, you I mean, the part of duality that I really love is I love individuality. I love the fact that we're all unique. Even if we're trying to be like some mono the same thing, we're not though. We're all unique, and that's fun. That's super cool. Like if we all had
Yeah.
the same face and the same body and we all looked like, the same,
Grace.
like, yeah, that would suck. We were like a little robot.
Yeah,
I used to
exactly.
think about this a lot when I was a kid. I'd be like, I wonder if there's like individuality in heaven, because it's like, what if somebody had a different nose than me? And I'd be like, ooh, I like their nose better than my nose. Or I was like, anything that's different can cause, attention. And I would think a lot about that. And then I would be like, yeah, but then it would be horrible if we were completely all the same, or if we were all just only light and that's it. And you're just like, oh, you're bright. Yeah, you're bright too. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. You
Well, that's
you
what happened in Lemuria was all light, and even Lyra as well. Like Lyra was like the origin. I don't know if you got, you read
the Prism of Lyra.
yeah, the Prism of Lyra. So like they were light. It was like a light civilization. It was all light and it was all pure. But then the essentially the darkness came in and took over, and that's when they had to experience duality
Hmm.
nature. And essentially
I
the
remember
planet.
being a light before. I actually remember being light itself is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So like in order to like expand and to completely like gain full access to the universe, we have to really be experiencing all of it, including the dark arts training, right? Or the, the dark points of it to understand what it is, so that the soul can contract and expand, because it's like a natural aspect of the universe. But the earth also, acts like that. And if you think about, like, was it Machu Picchu is actually built on like volcanic ash, right? Like it had to explode, or like, in order to construct some.
Is it like, I don't know if it's volcanic. It might be. I don't know about that one. I mean, like a lot of places that I've been to are like, I was in Orvieto, Italy, and that's all like a giant. That town is on a giant volcanic plume of like, it's not the volcano itself. It's the debris of the explosion.
Yeah. So the explosion created the foundation. So it's very interesting to think about that, how the earth really mimics a lot of our universe, and a lot of our experience throughout the universe. So really we have that full
Our
experience.
Earth is crazy though, like the day and the night and the sun and the moon being the same size in the sky. Like that's where I go, like, this is not coincidence. This is just like I don't know what kind of construct it is, but it's some kind of construct. Um, it's just too coincidental.
It is. That's why I love the study of astrology, because I mean, it goes beyond astronomy, or begins to take the psychology of the astronomy and how it's affecting us, and how it's affecting, the, the cosmos itself, how that's actually affecting our experience. So I don't know. I feel like that to me is the code, is the way that I can actually understand anything.
And if you guys want an astrology reading of any kind, you have to go to her, because it is I've had so many people read me, dude. Like, you're the best. I love your
Oh,
stuff.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah. Like, I'm a bitch sometimes. I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm lazy too. I'm a very flawed human being with very
Yeah, well, the
flawed
fact that you
brain.
realize that is super powerful, right? It's like you realize that you're a human being having this experience. Is
Yeah.
so imperfect. It's so imperfect. And that's the perfection of it. It's like, that's what's
Yeah,
awesome
that's
about
the fun part of it. But and like I said, like, this is only we're just on a short dance.
it.
So,
Yeah, it
enjoy it.
is. And a short dance and an infinite experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm offering you galactic readings, which go even further than I had even given you, where I get like deep into. I studied with Julia Balaz, who came up with galactic astrology. Galactic astrology has been around for some time. People have all done it in their own different ways. And I studied with Lavendar from Starseed Hotline for a bit, but Julia Balaz takes it into and expands it into the fixed stars and the asteroids, and how the different planetary alignments can be in conjunction or opposition or square to different galaxies and galactic points. And it can really put you in touch to different lifetimes where you are on a planet or a galaxy, for instance, like Andromeda or the Pleiades. And you can like really understand even deeper, like what particular star system that you were a part of. Like even in the Pleiades has not only 7 different stars, but even more than that, it's associated with the Pleiades itself. So you can even like, we can even take a look at which star point you are on. Like I think I had read that you were on the Hyades, I think the Hyades.
Oh yeah.
So that's a specific star point in the Pleiades system. So it gets really specific. So yeah, I learned how to do that from her, and I offer that now, which is way more of an expansion of the Starseed confirmation readings I used to offer through Starseed Hotline. But I still like to take a look at the psycho-spiritual aspect of how you're being driven to live your life, your initiation points in this life, and what you have to master to get to that next point of mastery. I think those are really important to look at as well in an astrology chart.
So do you what's your percentage of what do you think the percentage of star seeds are, from like galactically speaking, on like when you're looking at it, like how many people?
Because the people that are attracted to me are all star seeds. So it's like, I'm not going to the only readings I give to people are not star seeds, are like their partners or their best friends or someone, like, oh, you have to get a reading from her. I want to see if you're a star seed. And that person's like, well, I don't really resonate with all the star seed stuff, but okay, I'll get a reading. And like, those are the ones that are not. star seeds. And I can see in their chart maybe where they've traveled and what they've experienced, but they don't come in this life to like really be star seed embodied. You know, they come usually to finish karma, to live out karma, to complete something, to expand in a different way, to just to live a very normal life. And it's totally okay because that's what they've chosen. But when I see different star seeds, it's like they're on a mission. Usually people feel like they're on a mission and they want to know what their mission is. It's like that's usually, and I've had like an inner earth being that wasn't necessarily like star seeded. She was inner earth and I could see it in her chart. Like she came from Agartha and I could see that. And I kind of got that download from her. And I saw that, you know, I mean, that's a different kind of star seed, but I wouldn't consider that star seed, you know, because it's like really more connected to the ancient land and even the indigenous natives, which I mean, they're the first star seeds, to be honest with you. But it's more earth related. And it's the inner earth, I don't think are necessarily star seeded, but they're a different kind of
but they are a consciousness coming out.
yeah, and it's just coming out now. It's like coming out more and more, which is really exciting. Because this inner earth consciousness that's becoming more public, becoming more, what's the word?
In the awareness or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, becoming more in the awareness and the consciousness is really starting to ground out some of this flighty starseed kind of concepts of like being from this planet or that galaxy. And it's really helping us again. I think that's why it's coming out now. I think that's why this inner earth like energy is coming through more now, because it's like, don't forget about this planet. Like this earth has
You're on
everything.
a planet too right now.
Yeah.
Space.
Yeah, so it's like it's nice to know we're a multidimensional intergalactic being having this human experience on this earth, but we can't lose touch of the fact that we're on this earth. So I think that's where the star-seeded thing gets lost. It's like it gets too alien sometimes, and we need to be careful because there is that whole negative alien agenda that is kind of enmeshed in it. So there is an alien agenda, of course, but we want to be careful because there's a whole negative alien agenda, which is, you know, very reversed, and it's part of what's um, you know, destroying part of this planet, is the wars happening with that. So it gets confusing. I think I don't, that's probably like another topic, another time, but
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I think the ultimate, like if you, it's like, it's basically there's one energy, and you can say if you want to call it galactic or whatever, not, but there's one energy that is very much trying to uh not even monetize, but like monotize, like make everything the same, like kind of blend us back into this concept of like a gray, meaning like they want us all with this, like this is the correct thing, this is the way we do it, this is it. And then there's another group that I think there's another consciousness that it's just like break free, be free, go away bird, fly, be free. So there's these two ultimate I kind of feel like these are the two agendas. So whether it like a lot, and I feel like a lot of the ET energies are in one of those two camps, either fly, be free, or do as I do, you know, or do as I tell you to do.
yeah, that's scary. We do have to definitely be careful not to go down the timeline of like assimilation. If everyone has to, like, you have to be like me. Oh, you're like me. You think like me. Oh, you're connected to the ETs. Yeah, we're ET together, and it's like that's not important. Although it is really, it is one of those things that it is good to know. It is good to know, but it's like we have to go back to the idea we are all sovereign, you know, and we all come from the same source, and we're free to be who we want.
And we're all here now. You know, we're all human beings right now. So
yeah, exactly. So it's like looking at a culture. Oh, you know, you were born in Greece, and or your ancestors came from Scotland, and you know your ancestors came from, you know, like, I don't know, like Liberia. It's like, okay, great. Well, you don't have to be Liberian like me. I'm Liberian. You know, you're Scottish. Okay, great. It's like, okay. But it's nice to know, like, people want to do their ancestry, they want to trace their ancestry, and that's a personal journey, and that's totally how it should be. So again, when we start to be like, oh, go get this reading, or go find out who you are, and it's like, if that person's not drawn to it, there's something inherently not pure about that, because they're not on the initiation path to want to do it. Like you have to have the impulse from yourself to go on that journey, and it can't be forced. It's an initiation, just like everything is an initiation. That's the next initiation point, and it won't even be received. Like I'll be giving a reading to kind of deaf ears sometimes if it's someone's not like choosing it that themselves anyway, and it's like a waste of energy on both ends, so they're paying for it and then I'm like actually not being received. So it is a very interesting experience.
And the QHHT thing, you're doing a lot of that now too.
Yeah. So I do think that's really an amazing way to find out for ourselves who we are, and then really tune into our higher aspect of who we are. Because again, you can tap into these archetypal lifetimes that are having an effect and an importance in this lifetime. So it's like it is being re-experienced and remembered by you. The remembrance is bringing back those. It's like a soul retrieval in a way.
Yeah.
It's bringing back those lost aspects of who are ourselves and integrating it so that we are become more and more whole. The more and more like we go into ourselves, the more whole we become. So I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just sitting there and helping guide you further into yourself. So that is like, I think it's a beautiful journey. It's like when someone goes into plant medicine, right? Where they do is they want to go deeper into themselves. But this doesn't rely on anything. It relies on your breath. It relies on you completely. And like I hold this space and then I help guide further and deeper into oneself. And things get unlocked. It is like an unlocking point. And even if it's not giving you like specific straight away answers to the questions you have, it starts to unravel, months down the road. You start to understand why some of those lifetime experiences came through in that hypnotherapy session, the regression session that you had. So
Yeah. And I feel like the regression aspect is even in your own like incarnation right now, I know this happens for me, so I know it's got to happen for other people, but you'll get the same life lesson until you learn it. You're going to get the same one, and
yeah,
it'll come in different people. The same scenario will happen to you more than once until you like basically get the lesson. And I think that even goes even further in terms of like a lot of past life stuff too. Like it's even okay, like you can start seeing like, okay, what's the lesson that my soul has not learned yet, and it's getting passed down. And it's a really good time to be like, oh, okay, like, oh, let me get this lesson, let me like fully integrate this then right now, so that I don't have to continue repeating this.
I think that's really what people look for when they want to know what galactic heritage they are, because they really want to start to integrate themselves more and more. And that's really what a lot of us came here to do, is integrate here on this planet in our body. Because like that's really the magic that happens when we're in this dense plane, integrating these higher dimensional aspects, like that drastically begins to change the collective unconscious and the electromagnetic frequencies on the planet. So then we start to planetary shift that way. So it's like one person doing their work, doing a regression or doing some inner work or whatever mode or modality they feel like doing, that begins to shift the collective conscious. And that's really what we're here to do. So like, that's why I love doing the regression sessions, because it's not just an exploration of past lives. Sometimes it's future lives. Sometimes it's parallel lives. And sometimes it's this life earlier, even on, and or even in the future. It's like, it's all aspects of ourselves that want to be reintegrated. So again, that soul retrieval, it's a very galactic shamanic journey. So there's the earth shamanic journey through plant medicines. Then there's the galactic shamanic journey, which is through these kinds of like deep journeys within ourself, within our experience and our conscious connection to like a higher dimensional plane.
Okay, the takeaway for me would be there's like readings and regressions and these are all their tools, like plant medicine, these other things, these are all tools. But like I think basically everybody just if you know yourself a little bit better, that's kind of good. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah,
Helps everything.
I feel like
Knowing yourself helps everybody.
yeah, I mean, I feel like the takeaway for this is like the mainstream of there's the thread here is the journey. So like the journey, into yourself. But the journey into activating yourself, the journey into consciousness expansion, the journey with Gaia. So like the journey here as a human on this planet, and the different facets of that journey, and how cool and how fun it can be to do it. So
Okay, cool. So where can people find you?
you can find me on AwakenedAspects.com on my website, and I'm on there. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube, Awakened Aspects. So just hit me up there. Offerings there. You can reach me, and I'd love to connect. So thanks so much, Nikki, for this interview today and for connecting today. This has been super fun.
For me as well. Okay, and we will talk again very soon.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
Bye.